All right, we want to welcome everybody to the daVinci Payments Gig Economy 2021 webinar. We're very excited to share our latest study, the daVinci Gig Economy 2021 study. We've got some excellent insights. Before we do that, let's jump in and I'll share just a little bit with you about daVinci and our methodology. First, introducing myself, I'm Rodney Mason, Chief Marketing Officer of daVinci Payments. And daVinci blends art, science, and a quarter century of experience to deliver greater value in payments for all stakeholders. Payment solutions include virtual and physical prepaid and push-paid, issued instantly and packed with choice, flexibility, and branding for companies to pay and engage consumers, employees, contractors, channel partners, and businesses like never before. daVinci is leading the payments movement to greater value. Join the movement. If you'd like a copy of today's study, because you're attending this webinar, we will send this video to you and you'll also get a copy, but you can also find it on our website along with many other studies. We've got a lot, everything from future shopping to employee rewards and recognition, all kinds of studies. You can find those at davincipayments.com/research studies. Now let's jump into our methodology. Our methodology. So we surveyed 2,788 U.S. adults reflective of the U.S. population with 97% confidence, and we did this on November 5th, 2020 via SurveyMonkey online panel. 35% of the respondents, 1,002 total, identified as gig participants, and their responses are what the results from this study are based on. The definition of gig and how we defined it for our participants and how we're defining it today, gig is defined as temporary or part-time work contracted by independent workers for short-term engagements. Now let's go into the findings. The U.S. gig economy this year is 1.6 trillion. That means 1.6 trillion earned in wages from the gig economy, up 33% from 2019. 33%. That is massive, especially when you're talking about a number 1.6 trillion. That's up from 1.2 trillion in 2019. So just a huge movement. Obviously, COVID has had a lot to do with that, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more. Next. Explosive growth in the gig economy. So here we're going to break it down for you a little bit more. As it relates to the U.S. adult population who actually gig work, 93 million people this year in 2020 participated in the gig economy. That's versus 70 million in 2019. So you see that huge 23 million people added to the gig economy. That population's up 33%. And the average gig worker income is up 3% from $16,926 to $17,445. Now, those that are working full-time jobs, it was 50 million in 2019, and it's 59 million in 2020. There's a key indicator there, though. The total population has increased, but the percentage that are working full-time jobs has actually come down. And that, again, we believe is in part because of COVID. 9 million more people working full-time jobs, but in comparison to the total number that are now working in gig, it's a smaller percentage. And then those that make less than $15,000 per year in gig, that's right at 75%. So the majority are making $15,000 from gig or less. When you look at the market size, 1.6 trillion, as we talked about. Next slide. Okay, annual household income. So here we have a breakout of annual household income across the board. And we'll get into the numbers. A lot of people gig work and they also have other full-time jobs. 50% of gig workers have a household income of less than $50,000. That's $19,000 below the national average. And there's a few reasons for that. We'll talk about a few of those coming up. But kind of, the big one is most people are in the gig economy to supplement their income. So it's natural that they would be earning less than the national average. Next. Average gig income is $17,477. 74% of workers make less than 15,000. This is just a breakup by income. And you can see as you get in those higher earning categories in gig, those kind of consultancy, private company situation, it's a much smaller percentage of the total population in their earnings from gig. Next slide. Gig participation by men and women, men up 20% and women up 19% from 2019. So both categories up equally. What's interesting is that men have always been more dominant in the gig category as a percent of total, but we're seeing significant growth for women. Okay, gig workers by generation. So when we talk about that income being a little bit lower, one of the reasons is generational. So Gen Z and millennials are the dominant, 18 to 39-year-olds are the dominant group, the majority group that works in gig. And just by the nature of earnings, when people are younger, they tend to earn less. So that is one reason why gig workers earn less. But when you're thinking about gig workers, there's still a significant group in Gen X and even boomers that are participating. When you think about education, this is very interesting. So gig workers tend to have more education. There's college, some college or college graduates, and the same level of advanced degrees as the general population for highest education earned over that period of time. So gig workers are more educated than the general public. So when we ask what kind of work do you prefer, 40% prefer a mix of gig and full-time work, and 30% prefer only gig work. So 70% prefer gig work. Only 29% that are in the gig economy prefer just full-time work. 63% of gig workers have a full-time job in addition to their gig jobs, and that is down a little bit from, actually quite a bit from 2019. But again, gig is really about extra income and supplementing income. So why do you gig? Gig work supplements income and provides flexibility and stability. You can see here, 59% are gigging just to supplement income. Number two is more flexible schedule. Three, stability for work sources. Now, when we slice, because we'll show you the different gig categories, there's like 18 of them. When we slice that, we start looking at that individual data. There are categories like gig warehouse, where they are working in that space and they care more about a flexible schedule than supplemental income. But when you boil it down, it's typically supplemental income, more flexible schedule, stability for work sources are the primary ones. How much gig work do you plan on doing this year? 78% of gig workers plan on doing the same or more, so it's very sticky. Usually that number is a little bit lower, so they're anticipating participating in gig continually throughout the year. There's always new people coming in, but the fact that this is sticky and people are anticipating, more people are anticipating staying with it, you're going to see the gig numbers continue to rise. How has COVID impacted your gig work? 74% believe gig work is as important or more important to their financial security because of COVID. So gig work is really important to them right now under COVID for 3/4. Like they're either supplementing their income or it is their income, and it's more important than it's ever been. When you look at these numbers in the past, how important is gig work? It's usually, for some people it's important, but this is a big, big number. So here are the categories, types of gig work participated within the last 18 months. Surprisingly, retail, you hear all about it, definitely has its struggles right now, but still very high as people have switched online. There's been repurposing of labor forces and particularly gig. So retail is still number one. Kind of the same for restaurants, similar situation. Those numbers are not as big as they were previously, but still at the top. Then you have cleaning. You've got customer service, you've got delivery driver or ride share, tied at number 4, hotel and conventions, number 6, education, tied with sales and influencers At number 7, there's that warehouse. That's a big one. We've seen a lot of growth there. Warehouse gig, simply because of all the online transactions in ways that people are managing their daily lives now. And then web, software, tech, advertising, kind of in that space. And then you can see the other categories there. And you can get a full view of those when you get the report and download the report. So what are gig workers looking for? Well, they've told us same day pay. They want an app-like experience and special value offers. We're going to talk more about that. So we said, would you be more loyal to a job with same day pay? 70% said they would be more loyal to a gig job that offered same day pay. Now, why are we asking about loyalty? When you think about, for instance, we cited the warehouse gig workers. Those warehouse gig workers and anybody that's recruiting in that space they need people. They need gig workers. Well, they're not only competing with other warehouses to employ those people, but they are actually competing with all those other categories that were in front of them, because those warehouse workers are doing those other types of gig jobs, and we have the data that shows that. So as they're doing that and they're looking to attract these, in general in gig, there's this trend towards same day pay. It's more value, and it helps gig workers who are constrained on time and constrained on money, and a lot of times even unbanked. So giving them these kinds of services will make them more loyal and more inclined to work for gig recruiters. 70% said same day pay is important and would make them more loyal. 63% have been offered same day pay. So 63% of all gig workers have received some same day pay. How important are apps? 61% believe apps are important or an absolute must. Again, they're working multiple jobs. They're trying to keep track of their life and their schedule, and it's really hard. The apps actually help them streamline not only accepting gig work and looking for gig work, but also organizing gig work. So apps are very important for the majority. And would you like to receive values with your gig pay? 72% said yes, they would. And we did some drill downs on this with some of the responses. And I want to explain exactly what this means. So there's a lot of ways that you can pay gig workers. You can just send a direct deposit to their bank account. You can do a push to a prepaid type card or virtual card that they can load into their phone and spend anywhere instantly. And that's a great way for same day pay. Whenever you provide payment options, you can put those on a paywall. So it's a digital experience they can access from their phone. Most of them are on their phones. When they go there to choose how they want to be paid or to activate their pay or to accept their pay, at that exact moment, they actually want to receive offers. And the offers are savings and values that help them better live their life. Keep in mind, they're struggling. They're struggling with time. They're struggling to keep their head above water financially, most of them. Um, so those types of values and savings that they're most interested in tend to be food, transportation, work-related clothing or materials or supplies that they need are the most relevant offers that you can put out there. So a lot of people are scratching their heads saying, well, how do we do that? Well, daVinci has a platform. It's called the Brand Accelerator. And with the Brand Accelerator, when we deliver payments, there's an entire CMS platform that can serve up those offers. It can actually serve them videos, give them other incentives, referral incentives to refer other gig workers. But additionally, it's possible to have partners that you work with to provide them with value-added savings where you can drive your gig workforce out to those partners. And those partners, in turn, can promote you with your recruiting of gig workers or your business. So anyway, that's a tool that we've seen newer to the market. daVinci actually created it, and we're seeing a lot of success out of it. When I say success, for gig recruiters. All right, so a summary of our key findings. The gig economy is 1.6 trillion, up 33%, 93 million People are participating in the gig economy. That's up from 70 million in 2019. Gig income average is $17,477. 74% are making less than 15K from gig work. Gen Z and millennials account for 56% of gig participants. So you need to keep in mind those generations and how they're used to transacting quickly on their phone, highly engaged. Gig workers are more educated than the general population, with half having some advanced education beyond high school. 46% have said that COVID has made gig very important to them. Same day pay with virtual payments significantly increases loyalty. It's very important to them. And an added note on that, when you think about gig workers, there's a large population that's actually unbanked. So if you can't directly push to their bank account and you're cutting a check, a payment, even if it's not same day pay, a prepaid payment is a better value for both the payor and the payee. The reason being, issuing checks is expensive, issuing prepaid cards is cheaper, but it also gives an instantaneous push or delivered in the time that you want it to be delivered. And then on the recipient end, if they are unbanked, it makes their life much easier. They can load it in their phone and they can spend it. There are no associated fees. If you send them a check, they have to go to a check cashing place, which in and of itself, from a time perspective, is a hassle. It costs them money. And so you're making their life easier through prepaid. And then the majority welcome special savings offers delivered with their pay. So right there on the paywall, when they're showing up to click accept for their payments or choose how they want to be paid, giving them special offers from partners related to their everyday life with food, work-related items, transportation, those kinds of savings that help them in their everyday life will make them more loyal to you. So that concludes our study. We really appreciate everybody being here today. I know a lot of you have sent in questions, and we're going to follow up with those questions after the video. When we send follow-up, we'll share with you all the questions that were asked, and we'll have those answers for you to be efficient with your time. But I do want to let you know that daVinci's gig study and all of our studies, like the future of shopping, can be found at davincipayments.com research studies. And if you want to know more about daVinci and our solutions, like the brand accelerator, you can go to davincipayments.com solutions. And if you want to contact us, go to daVinci Payments. Anywhere on the website, you can click on contact us or go to davincipayments.com/contact us. All right, we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Please download the study. Hit us with your questions. We do have custom slices by industry that we can provide, for special needs. And thank you so much. That concludes our presentation.